Gang Territory, Chapter 1, Schoolyard Yahoos. I braced my belly against a leaden foreboding that couldn't be vomited out. I knew I would have to fight. My aunt left me at the entrance to the schoolyard at 9:15. "I should have been at the office half an hour ago," she complained. "I wanted to be sure that you got here safely. Now you know the way, you can come on your own in future." She gave me a key hung on a cord, and a string of instructions and admonitions. "Here, take this, and hang it round your neck. You'll need it to get in by the back door. Make sure you don't lose it. Don't touch the wireless. I don't want you running the accumulator battery down. I'll be home at 7 o'clock. Behave yourself, and don't make me ashamed of you." She cycled briskly off to work in town on her most upright of upright bicycles. She was a shorthand typist in a government office. I looked around apprehensively. I knew no one, and no one knew me. The village school was unlike any I had attended when living at the orphanage in London. The yard was small, no bigger than 5 tennis courts. It was gravelly and dusty, not asphalted like the other yards I had known. A row of tall lime trees ran along one side. Along the other was a low schoolhouse made of red brick and flintstones. It had a small house attached just by the main gate for the caretaker. As I walked slowly and hesitantly into the yard, a girl came towards me. She had long dark hair plaited into a heavy braid. "Hello," she said. "I'm Kate. You're new, aren't you? I saw you yesterday in Lyons Avenue with your mother. I live in Lyons Avenue too." "She's not my mother," I replied. "She's my aunt. I don't have a mother." Kate looked rather taken aback. Perhaps my reply had been a little abrupt. "Your aunt, then," she said a bit stiffly. "Are you coming to stay here?" "Yes, I've come here to live. I don't know for how long. The orphanage I was in was destroyed by a bomb." I wanted to make a good impression on this new contact on my first day, particularly if she lived near my aunt, so I said in a friendly way, "I like your hair. I've always admired plaits." She stood straight and gave a little shake of her head, which set her braid swinging. "As long as you don't pull it," she said with a pout. Then she danced away with a smile on her face. "You can call me Katie if you like." The invitation to chase was plain, but it seemed a bit too daring for such short acquaintance. I watched her disappear into a group of girls at the far end of the yard. If she lived in Lyons Avenue, I would certainly see her again. Not knowing what to do next, I sat on the low wall under the lime trees and watched what was going on. It was clear from the metal stumps on the wall that it had once been crowned with iron railings. Like so many elsewhere, these had been cut off for scrap iron to make bullets and bombs. Several boys came by, looking sideways at me without speaking. They didn't want to be seen with me until my status had been established. That depended in part on events, and in part on the power and authority of someone not yet present. All I wanted was to be left peacefully alone, but the world isn't like that. Each time I started at a new school it was either fight or submit. But I was not the submitting kind, although you would not guess it from my slight appearance and introverted manner. My experience told me that the person not yet present was the one I would probably have to fight. So I sat, watched, and waited. A huddle of girls glanced at me from time to time. My arrival was being discussed. A small weaselly boy wandered towards them. "Look out! Here comes Creepy!" cried one of them. They turned their backs on him as he continued his way to come up near me. There was an uneasy air of expectancy in the wind. Creepy had a sly half-smile on his face, which I could tell was not for me. Without looking at me directly, he hissed out of the corner of his mouth, "You better watch out for Snailer. He don't like new boys." And he sidled off, glancing sideways to catch the expression his warning had left on my face. I tried to remain poker-faced, but I felt an army of slithery things marching around in the place where a little earlier I had felt my breakfast. There was a small clock tower in the centre of the schoolhouse roof. The clock had 4 faces, so that it could be read easily from anywhere in the schoolyard. The 2 faces I could see showed 6 minutes to 9. Only 6 more minutes before school started. I began to will the minute hand up towards the decorated 12, but it seemed as though the clock had stopped. Perhaps Snailer would be late. Perhaps he wouldn't come at all. Then I saw Creepy, who had been hanging around the gate, go up to a big lad just coming in. Did I say big? He was huge. He towered over the others around him and made the Weasley Creepy look like a midget. With him was another boy nearly as big. Creepy spoke rapidly with them for a moment and pointed in my direction. The 3 of them, hands in pockets, started swaggering towards me. This was undoubtedly Snailer, accompanied on either side by his henchmen. A small crowd of boys followed behind them, and most of the girls stopped what they were doing to come closer to see what would happen. I watched the trio approach whilst trying to remain calm, at least outwardly. An appearance of quiet confidence is essential in these circumstances. Snailer and his bodyguard stopped in front of me. There was a silence. I glanced at the clock. It was 4 minutes to 9, but a lot could happen in 4 minutes. I decided to unbalance them by taking the initiative. "How nice," I said, "a welcoming committee." I smiled at them warmly. I had a faint hope that gentle diplomacy and a friendly approach might disarm them. It was wasted effort. Deep down, I already knew it would be. "How nice and la-di-da," said Snailer, mocking my London accent. Then he got straight down to asserting his authority. "What's your name, new boy?" "My name is not New Boy, Snailer," I replied softly. I glanced again at the clock. I was playing for time and probing him out. "My name I give only to friends." This took him off guard. He had not expected resistance. A series of expressions flitted across his face: perplexity, frustration, rage, curiosity. Which one would win? "How'd you know me name, new boy?" he snarled, his face darkening. "Oh, I have my informers," I replied airily, still trying to keep him unbalanced, but watching him closely for signs of the violence that surely was not far off. His face became even darker, and the ridge of his nose went white. "All right, Mr. Hoity-Toity, you asked for it." And he lunged forward with his bruisers to give it to me, but I had my counter-move ready, and they were too slow. With a single movement, I leapt backwards onto the low wall on which I was sitting, sprang over their heads to a parachutist's fall behind them, and was up and running for the school porch before they could even turn round. Just in front of the porch, I nearly collided with a tall, angular woman coming out carrying a large bell. I skidded to a halt in a cloud of dust and fell backwards into a sitting position at her feet. She looked down at me with a thin sort of smile. "I know some children enjoy school," she remarked, "but such enthusiasm to get inside, even before the bell, is truly remarkable." She helped me to my feet and then rang her bell vigorously while I dusted myself off. I inspected her with interest. She was as straight as a gun barrel, and her old-fashioned dress hung from her shoulders almost to the ground, hardly touching, it seemed, anything inside. If it weren't for the dress, I would have thought her a man, except that as she swung her bell, just the hint of a curve showed itself briefly in all the places where women were the most rounded. A whistle hung from her neck on a thin blue cord. At the sound of the bell, all movement in the yard and all sound ceased. She turned to me and held the bell towards me. "Here, hold this." "No, not like that. By the clapper, not the handle." She addressed me by my name, so she knew who I was. I was doubtless the only new boy enrolled after term had started. "I'm Miss Hanger, the head teacher." "Yes, Miss Hanger, it's my pleasure," I replied politely. I admired her style, and as it is always useful strategy to establish good relations with adults in authority, I decided to say so. "I've never seen a bell swung with such energetic and elegant grace." Miss Hanger stood stock still for an instant, then swivelled on her heels to look at me long and hard, trying to decide whether or not I was attempting to make fun of her. I gazed directly back without wavering. She decided my compliment was genuine. Her face softened. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Let me show you how to carry the bell correctly." I thought that I had perhaps established a good contact, at least for the moment. After a few muted clangs, I understood how to grasp the clapper firmly and avoid inadvertent noises from the heavy instrument. "You can be the bell monitor for today," she said, as though conferring a great honour. She put the whistle to her lips and blew a sharp blast. This set all the children running to form 6 parallel lines stretching across the yard away from her, lines of boys and girls alternately. There were about 15 children in each line. Snailer was glowering at the front of the 5th line. The members of his bodyguard were in the 3rd line. She turned to me again. "Your line is the one furthest from the gate." Taking her words as an instruction to go to my place in the line, I set off as indicated. But I didn't want to give anyone the impression, even though it was true, that I was afraid of Snailer. So I decided to go up along the rank he headed. As I got level with him, he aimed a swift kick at my legs. I dodged this and responded with a prod from his side with the handle of the bell. "Bell monitor! Bell monitor!" cried Miss Hanger. "Come back here! Come back here at once!" It took me a moment to understand that it was me she was calling. I retraced my steps, taking opportunity of my return to give Snailer a second poke in the kidneys with the handle of the bell. He gave a satisfying grunt of pain. I heard some of the children nearby snigger. I had scored a point. "Miss, please, miss," cried Snailer. "The new boy hit me." Miss Hanger knew with whom she was dealing. She looked at him severely. "Snailer, if you've a complaint to make, come to my office after school." She knew, as did everyone else, including me, that Snailer would do no such thing. Another point scored. "Right, bell monitor," she said to me. "Stay by my side until the last child has filed into school. I'll show you where to stow the bell in the porch and then introduce you to your classroom." With that, she blew another sharp blast on her whistle, and the first line of children began filing through the porch, followed by the second, then the third, until all the children were inside. Snailer glared impotently at me as he filed by. I knew with a sinking heart that our clash was far from over, and the impending fight merely postponed.